Celtics competition swirling down the toilet. What is Payton Pritchard's future? And I fixed the All-Star game. All right now on a mailbag episode of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season, drop Drew in the mix. And 3 from KP, no we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Juice, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in locked on NASA. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and Jace, how we started raising business, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and I got you covered every Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts on the weekends like they just played. So sometimes it's 7 days a week, and that's fine with me. I'm here to podcast for free for you every day that they play and every weekday. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. I've been covering the Celtics for about 20 years. I'm doing it as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal and as the author of Built Different, a special commemorative book celebrating Banner 18. You can buy it at johnkaralis.com for $30. Great gift for the holidays or a birthday. $30 personalized, signed, delivered directly to your door within the United States. That's pretty good. So go do that. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get a big return on FanDuel this year. If you're a new customer, you place a $5 bet, and if you win, it's $150 in bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today's show is a mailbag episode. Later on, we'll fix the All-Star game. We'll talk about Payton Pritchard and all of that. Today, the mailbag questions can come in at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Make sure you're getting those questions in there and there only, because that's the only way I can keep them organized. So do that. It's johnkaralis.com/mailbag. Every once in a while, I'll get one of these mailbag episodes when I can. And so do what Mike did and do what Robert did. 2 questions to kick us off about the Celtics competition. Mike says Knicks, Bucks, and Sixers don't seem to be much of a threat. After all the talk about what a difficult sweep the Pacers were in the playoffs, do you see Indiana as a legit threat? Robert says, who would have thought that by Halloween we'd be seriously considering the demise of the Sixers and Bucks? Maybe folks should have taken Brad's mandatory preseason Cavs prediction more seriously. Well, yeah, things are not going well for the competition. And yeah, the Cavs, if you don't remember the GM survey, 1 vote for the Cavs as the best team in the league, and that came from Boston because you can't vote for yourself. So pretty prescient by Brad Stevens or the Brad Stevens front office. Really proves that they know what they're doing, right? The Cavs are undefeated, 7-0. You know, they had some easy games in there, but Boston had some easy games. So great start to the season for the Cavs. We'll see if they can stay up there. The Knicks, I'm going to give them time. They are an incomplete in my book. So we'll see. Bucks and Sixers. The Bucks can't defend anybody. Let's just start with them, get them out of the way. They can't defend anybody. This goes to show how important Chris Middleton was, how important Drew Holiday was. You give up Holiday to get Dame Lillard, and you throw just spare parts there next to him. You don't have Middleton because he continues to be hurt. The backcourt of Middleton and Holiday was so good because they could both defend and they could both score. And now the Bucks just either have one or the other. They don't have both, and they certainly don't have both in either player. So that's a problem for Milwaukee. Brook Lopez is old or older and playing well enough, but he's not going to be able to anchor a high-level defense the same way he could before. Giannis can't do it all by himself, and the Bucks just have been a mess. A series of missteps, and I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around. Doc, I'll get to Doc later, but it's not looking great in Milwaukee. They are at the bottom of the standings along with the Sixers. They are the 2 worst teams in the East through 5 or 6 games, at this point. The Sixers, complete meltdown right now. It seems like Paul George is coming back on Monday, but they had the altercation between Joel Embiid and a reporter on Saturday night. That's the big story. Who knows how this impacts them? Embiid is not ready to play yet. He will be, apparently, he will be soon, but will he be suspended? How long will that suspension be? I can't tell in Adam Silver's NBA how long this suspension will be. It should be for a long time. But look, that reporter, Marcus Hayes, went overboard, crossed lines in invoking Embiid's son and deceased younger brother in his criticism of Embiid. You just don't do it. And you can go online and search if you don't know. I'm not going to drag this podcast down with those words, but completely out of bounds for him to do it, completely out of bounds for the Philly Inquirer to allow it, for an editor to allow it. Both the editor and Hayes should both be suspended. But also, I hate to say it, even though Joel Embiid is justified in being angry, very angry, you can't shove somebody. You just can't shove somebody, a reporter, in the locker room. It's as angry as you might be, that crosses a line too. As justified as you might feel, and as justified as some people might say he is, you can't put your hands on somebody. So that leads to that's going to lead to a suspension, I'm sure. But once again, it's an organizational failure. The Sixers failed Embiid by lying about his availability, by mischaracterizing how soon he'd be ready. They got fined $100,000 for how they were talking about Embiid's injuries. So it came as a surprise. They created a shock, a surprise, a story. They created an environment where somebody said, oh, wow, this is a big story. And Hayes wrote that article, that column. I'm not saying he wouldn't have crossed the line if the Sixers were a little bit more upfront, but it would have been much less likely. The Sixers created an environment through their deception, and then the PR staff didn't get a handle on how angry Embiid was. They didn't get a handle on Hayes and what he said. And I don't know how they addressed it with the Inquirer. They should have talked to the Inquirer. What they should have done was find Hayes, coordinate with him before that game, get him and Embiid into a room with team security on opposite ends of the room so no incident would happen. Let Embiid say his piece, scream, yell, let them yell at each other, get it over with, and then leave. And be like, okay, that's it. No further interaction is necessary right now. So there's no whatever happened in that locker room. The Sixers blew it, but the Sixers have been blowing it. So I'm not surprised that something else went wrong. Embiid is certainly justified to be angry, but like I said, you can't touch somebody. Hayes is not justified in writing what he wrote. I don't know him, but whatever. It seems like that's something that he's a style that he's been with, is used to. I'll say that. So I don't know what the Sixers are going to do. Embiid's going to miss a lot of time this season. They're 5 games out, 5.5 games out in November. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's going to be hard for them to go on a sustained run with Embiid going to be missing so much time. How can they put an 8, 9, 10 game stretch together when they aren't going to have Embiid for 2, 3, 4 games in that stretch? That's going to be difficult for the Sixers. I don't know how that's going to work. Meanwhile, the Pacers are, to Mike's point, probably the most difficult team the Celtics face. I've talked about it twice now, 3 times. Go back and listen to those Pacers podcasts. I'm buying that the Pacers are a very difficult opponent for the Celtics. Even though the Knicks are more talented and the Sixers are more talented and the Bucks are more talented, I guess they got Giannis, but the Pacers have a thing. They just have a thing that the Celtics, it makes it very difficult. Orlando, whenever Banchero comes back, that's a tough injury because it's an oblique strain, your core. It's not like he can do anything cardio-wise. He's just got to sit there and let it heal. Can't do anything. Sit there and play Fortnite. That's all you can do. And even then, you got to be careful about reacting. Oblique strains are very, very tough. So, but when he's healthy, Orlando can be formidable. So I don't know, man. The Eastern Conference is falling apart quickly. It's early, so there's time for teams to get it together. But I don't know. This doesn't look good for the Bucks and the Sixers. That definitely doesn't look good. Cavs, though, great call, Brad. All right, we'll get back into the questions when I come back, talking about trust. How did the Celtics build their trust? What's up with Xavier Tillman and Payton Pritchard's future on this team? It's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. I've benefited from therapy myself. I'm very open about that. I got lucky for sure because I found a therapist near where I lived at the time, and we clicked. It was good. It worked for me, but that's hard to do, and it's not likely. And depending on where you live, there might not be very many options. So it could be daunting. It could be tough. You might not want to do it, but BetterHelp is all online. So it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So you can go to betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. You fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. They match you. If you don't click, no problem. If you click right away, great. But if you don't, you can switch until you find somebody that you do. No extra charge. No big deal. Once you click, then you will be able to get through a lot of things. You'll be able to talk through relationship stuff, work stuff, long-standing stuff, new stuff, whatever it is, you'll be able to get through it. So check it out. BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. You'll get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp. HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Locked On Celtics postcast goes up 5 to 10 minutes after every Celtics game live on the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. Steve Lennox has that there, and then the audio goes on to this Locked On Celtics audio feed, so you get two podcasts after games. Steve's first on the audio feed, then mine after I'm done with my beat writer work. Locked On Celtics YouTube page remains unchanged. Go there for this podcast. Nothing changes there. Get into the comment section there, have some fun. Let's get back to the mailbag questions submitted at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. David says, in the 2022-23 season, one of the themes was the Celtics not playing as a team, not trusting each other. A big question last year is whether they'd get out of this pattern, and they played great. They showed great trust. How did they get over that hump? Is it having better players, losing Marcus Smart, Joe Mazzulla, a switch flipping for Tatum and Brown? The answer, David, is yes, maybe, yes, and yes. So, yes, better players. How do you develop trust? If you're Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, if you're driving and you look around you and you see Derek White and Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford, I'd be like, of course I'm passing the ball to those guys. Of course, if I see two guys, an open Derek White is better than me facing two guys. So of course I'm going to do that because he's going to hit the shot, and that's going to make it less likely for them to put two guys on me. So that makes sense. If Marcus is out there or Robert Williams or another non-shooter, then it becomes, well, maybe, no, I'll just do it myself. I've said this before, but as soon as Joe Mazzulla became head coach, it started to, when you saw his emphasis on offense, it became pretty clear, like, yeah, losing Marcus was tough, but you think back on it, you're like, yeah, there's no way Marcus Smart could have been a part of this offense. He wouldn't have been, he certainly wouldn't have been as big a part of it. He might not have been part of the closing lineups. And so it would have been tough. So that's part of it. Joe Mazzulla is part of it because his emphasis and guys have bought into it. A switch flipping for Tatum and Brown. Yeah, that's part of it because they're 27 and 28. This is the time in a player's career where, they go through stages. As a rookie, you're trying to prove yourself, trying to prove you belong, trying to prove that you belong at that third overall pick. Then you're trying to earn your money. Hate to say it, but it's their job. They're trying to earn as much money as they can. It's a business. This might be the biggest disconnect between fans and the players. We on the outside look at it as simply win at all costs. Win so Boston gets a parade. Win so everybody in Boston feels good. You play for the Boston Celtics. Boston and the Boston area, that is your focus. That is your priority. And they're like, yeah, that's nice. But every player is like, yeah, but this is also my job. I got to try to earn money. I got to earn that next contract. Can't sacrifice too much when you're too young because then you go in for negotiations and the GM's like, hey, you're only scoring 17 points. But like, well, I could have scored 25, but I was sacrificing. And they're like, well, you're a 17-point a game guy, and that's how we're going to pay you. That's tough. So, yeah, younger players focus on their money. And then they focus on their legacy. They focus on all-star games and stuff like that. Now, the winning stuff happens. It happens a little bit more later on. It's just a progression. Every player goes through that similar progression. So now the switch has flipped. Those guys have made their money. Their legacies are pretty solidified. The only thing missing is championships. And here we go. Here's your opportunity to win championships, and this is how you do it. So all of those things play into it. It's not just one thing. Todd asks, what's up with Tillman? Knee, matchups, or moved out of the rotation? Don't think it's his knee. He said, beginning of camp that the knee is fine. Everything's fine. The procedure worked. Everything is good. I assume everything is still good. He's not on the injury report, so I don't think it's his knee. I don't think he's moved out of the rotation. I think it's always been a matter of, hey, you're going to play, but if the matchups are right or wrong, like that's going to determine how much you're going to play. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit more switching against the Hornets, but they didn't switch as much against the Hornets. They needed a shot blocker in there, so Nemish Queta got in there. He's been playing pretty well lately, so they're giving him the reward. So I feel like it's just a matchup thing for him. So not the knee, not falling out of the rotation, just matchups. Chris says, here's my way too early take. Can Payton Pritchard be Holiday's replacement when the time comes to bust up this team? He's progressing by leaps and bounds. Is it sustainable? It's a tough one. But yes, he can be, and he probably will be. But we have to understand that'll make the Celtics worse. And it's just, if that's how it is. He's not Drew Holiday. We know he's not Drew Holiday. Probably might shoot a little bit better than Drew Holiday overall. But it's a little bit different. And putting him in the starting lineup, he's going to be a little bit small. And he's going to be targeted. And that, I know that he's a better defender, but he's going to get targeted. There are still times, and we will see stretches for Pritchard where the shot goes away. And when you game plan for the Celtics and he's out there, he's going to be out there for 30 minutes, you can start to target him defensively. And it'll be tough. It'll just be tough because he's smaller and he will get punished. There's no other way to say it. Now, it's not happening as much now as it did in the past. It's also the regular season. If it was in the playoffs, maybe it'll happen a little bit more. But he handled himself well, I think, in last year's playoff run. So it's not to say that he would be a complete liability, but if he's your main guy, if he's your starter in your 30-plus minute a game guy, that does change the calculus a little bit. It changes the game planning. And the bottom line is, if the Celtics are breaking things up and moving in a different direction, and Holiday is the one to go, which would suck, but it kind of makes sense in a year or two that he would be the guy to go. I would expect them to just get worse, and starting Pritchard makes them worse than if they started Drew Holiday. It doesn't make the team bad. It just puts a player out there that can be targeted in a playoff series. Just keep that in mind. Like, he's great. He is having a great start to the season. He has earned a lot of playing time. He has earned a lot of accolades. He is a tough, hard-nosed player. But if he's a starter and he's your starting guard and starting point guard, he is going to get targeted. And it just changes having him come off from having him come off the bench. That does change things. And people got to understand that a little bit. Up next, we fix the All-Star game. What's coming up? Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Go download the #1 sports book in America, because if you bet $5 and you win, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. So go ahead, tackle that NFL action. Have some fun over there at FanDuel. They give you everything you need in one place to put your live bets on the NFL. And if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can check out the play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Use the tools they have to set your limits, set your budget. So make sure you're just having fun with your disposable income and you're not going overboard. Make sure you're using those tools to gamble responsibly. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I'm hosting on Fridays now with Jake Madison. Moving to Fridays. We cover the league. We cover the whole night in the association. So check it out. When you're done with this podcast, make Locked On NBA your second podcast. Let's get back to the mailbag here. Peter says, hi, John. Obama recently went on the Young Man in the Three podcast with Tyrese Halliburton. Was talking about how the All-Star game has lost its heart. If you could have 100% full control over All-Star weekend, what would you change? It doesn't have to be realistic. Okay. This is probably not realistic, but I think it's a potential legitimate change. So we start with this premise. As Adam Silver said, the All-Star game basically is broken. The game itself, it has lost its heart, right? It's not fun anymore. They've tried a couple of things. They tried the Elam ending. I like that, but even that's not happening. So here's my proposal. You expand the rosters to 15. This is very necessary to this. It's not just because I want to have extra spots there. I think they are deserved. I think they can certainly fill those extra spots. I'm done with the 48-minute game. 15 players from the East, 15 players from the West. You have 6 teams now of 5. The top 6 vote getters are your captains, and you start picking teams. You play 5-on-5. I want to play full court, 5-on-5, game to 11. Winner holds the court. Winner keeps the court, just like you're playing outside, just like playground. You play to 11 straight up because you got people waiting. So the top 2 vote getters, their teams play. The third gets next. And then after that, 4th gets next, and 5th gets next, and 6th get next. And you go in a line. Now, if a team wins 3 in a row, you got to sit. But you immediately get in line for next after that. We'll see if that happens, but that could happen. One team could be dominant. And then you play till, I don't know, 60, 70, 80, whatever. So if you win a game to 11, you got to win 6, 7 games. That's tough, right? Can you get to 70? Well, I guess 75, I guess would be the number, or 77, right? That would be whatever the number is. Maybe it's 50 something, maybe it's 60 something. But it keeps up with people's short attention spans because it's like YouTube shorts of basketball, right? Of the All-Star game. It's you play to 11, next team up, right? You're not sitting there like bored. Two teams play to 11, boom, done. Next. Two teams play to 11, boom, done. Next. And maybe it's not hold the court. I like the hold the court concept. I shouldn't give up on that. But it could be done in a way where maybe it's a tournament style at first. I don't know. I think it could be done in a way where you play to a certain number, you play a little 5-on-5, you play quick games, and I think the competitive edge will be there because you're just trying to hold the court. So that's my solution for the All-Star game. You're not playing 48 minutes of basketball, but you're still playing 48 minutes of basketball. Really, you're playing for 2 hours. And I guess if a team dominates, then it could be over quicker, but you can put in like maybe there's a second place game or something. There's got to be like a financial gain for these guys. Winning team splits $1 million between 5 guys. That's pretty good, right? It's $200,000 a piece. So that's not nothing. That's a new watch for Jayson Tatum. So, the watch that they said, oh, is that a kid's watch? It's a $200,000 watch. You can buy a new one. You can buy a new one and give it to the guy and be like, don't lose your kid's watch, whatever. I don't know. But that's my solution for the All-Star game. I think it'll work. I think it'll be fun. Mike says, with all the fair negative comments about Doc Rivers coaching over the last couple of years, what happened? Did he forget how to coach? I was a big fan when he coached the season, the championship years. He got the best out of Rondo and was practically unmatched with his plays out of timeouts. How do you feel about him? Well, look, I still think Doc's a good enough coach. But first of all, times have changed. Second of all, he doesn't have the players, like the same mix of players. He had a good team in LA, but it didn't have the same dynamic as the Celtics did because, they weren't all fully bought in. There were different dynamics on that team. There are different dynamics in Milwaukee. It's tough. Like, I don't know how you coach that team up to play defense. And maybe Doc is only good enough to go, so far. People criticize Doc for like making excuses and stuff. Like, I still think Doc is a good enough coach. I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't resonate with these guys anymore. Maybe he's not. Maybe his heart's not into it the same way it was before. But he also doesn't have KG, Ray, and Paul. Those guys were in the right headspace at the right time, and it worked. So I don't know. Maybe Doc was never the best coach around, but for a stretch there, he had the best players. And so, when he was in Orlando, he had guys that really, really wanted to work hard. It's tough. Like I said before, with the other question about Tatum and Brown, like you could have guys that want to work and want to win, but sometimes guys want to win a certain way. And maybe the locker room in the, LA wasn't as good as Boston's locker room. It's tough. So I don't know. Doc's a good coach, but he's not the best coach. Billy asks, John, with your knowledge of the game, have you ever thought about being a coach? Well, I could coach the Bucks. No. I have thought about coaching, but only at the high school level. I would never want to coach in college. I don't have it in me to be a recruiter. I'm not a salesman. I'm certainly not going to put money in shoeboxes for kids. I'm not going to do that. I cannot accept winning based on cheating and dirty stuff like that. No, I want to win. I'd rather win with the lesser players. So college is out for me. Pros, I don't want to. It's a different game. It's not. You're not teaching basketball in the same way. I would love to at some point maybe be a high school coach. And you can teach kids about basketball and about life. Like when I say I love basketball, I love it because of it's what it's taught me life wise. So I think there are parallels. I think there are things that kids can learn at the high school level. Chances are you're going to get maybe a couple of kids who go to college here and there, not many. No one's going to go pro probably. So you're coaching kids in a glorified hobby that they love, and you want to teach them how to win and lose, but you want to teach them how to win and lose in life. And you do that through basketball. So that would be fun for me. That would be fun for me. So that's maybe someday I'd be a high school coach somewhere. But for now, I am your host of the Locked On Celtics podcast, and I'm not going away anytime soon. So make sure you're subscribed. I will be here for you all week long. And then Friday night, after they play, who they play at home? They play a game Friday night. I will be podcasting after that game too. So tons of podcasts here. All of them are for free. All of them are for you. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. And then share the podcast. Spread the word. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.